Welcome to Foto Dojo, where you can explore making comics, cartoons, characters, stories, and imaginary worlds. With me, Adam Fotos, creator of Dragon and Goat, a comic about a dragon and a goat. Plus, he's a professor of humanities and friend of huge manatees. Now we're going to apply some of these ideas of color to an actual painting, and we're going to go back to the blind contour self-portrait that you all made back in episode 7. So we can take a look at the color schemes that we've got here, and I can just lay them here over on the side. So you can see this is a lot like Photoshop, right? You've got your main image that you're working on, you've got your eraser tool, your palette of your colors, and then sort of the overall plan of what you're going to be going for. Now, in terms of color schemes, what I want to work with, I don't know, I'm feeling like maybe some cools, some cool colors mostly, and then some pops of warmer colors would be kind of nice to see. And so in terms of a color scheme that I'd like to work with, I think I'm going to go with the split complementary, the yellow and I think the yellow and then the blue violet and the red violet mostly. So I'm going to do just a few sections of this just so you can kind of see how it works. And this is just one sort of way I kind of think through working with this project. So for the what we've got is a lot of different shapes that have been sort of constructed by these different sort of overlapping maps of what I've seen. Now, I could make it a sort of more coherent image by changing the color for the areas that are the same sort of thing. So all if I wanted to make the blue violet all the hair, I could go back and do that. And then for the forehead, sort of emphasize that with the yellows. I'm not as concerned with that, but that might be a cool way to maybe play with these overlapping shapes. And so here I've got these areas moved in. I'm not using too much water. I'm using a flat brush, if you can kind of see there. So that sort of flat brush is going to allow me to much more easily hit those different shapes to go from thin to thick as I move the brush around, so you can get thin lines sort of with this edge, and then when you go with the flatter lines, I can sort of spin it and you can see. So if we're going back into this area, sort of paint that this sort of blue violet, and then I'm gonna go in this way just to check in like that. So I've got a blue violet, so that I want that to be a little bit bluer, I think. And these can be kind of thinner at the start. Usually with watercolor you start working from very thin washes, and you build up areas of sort of darks by adding more washes on top once those underlayers have kind of dried. I'm not really gonna overthink this too much, just sort of responding to the different shapes. I am thinking a bit maybe about balance and how I want to sort of arrange different sort of shapes in some ways. Particularly with split complementary, it's really easy and nice to take my palette and push the colors that I've got, the blue violet, work with that for a little bit. And then I can go back into other areas of the red violet. So I'm just going to work on these a bit. like I said, I so rarely use yellow. Let's see if we can get some yellow going. So instead of using like a super intense yellow to start with, I'm just gonna add a bit, add a lot of water. Sort of move that around, and let's see, maybe this area. So I'm gonna go to this area a little bit more. And then maybe like hit that with the cheek. Again, this, it's not about making the faces more visible. It's about making this portrait more about you. So in a way, like you can kind of, think about the colors corresponding to, the things that you're painting, but really it's about, this space, like this very abstracted space that's creeping across the page, and how are you investigating it now with these colors. It's like, you don't have to be on any sort of, mission to put it into any easier coherence for the viewer. It's just about, adding some layers of color. Now, the other cool thing that you want to consider is, like, as you're building up areas of color, you can also leave areas of white space. So don't feel like you have to color everything in. Also, feel free to try out some really light washes. This is starting to get a bit muddy, but if you want to play with that muddiness a little bit, that's okay. Maybe you're feeling like pretty muddy these days. And then you can also, don't forget, you can also do some transitions. So just to show you another like area where I could maybe do a transition. So let's see, bigger spot. So like, what about right down here? So I'll do this one. So this is maybe more of the, I want to start playing more with maybe the red violet here. And so in this space, maybe I start with the red violet for these, like that sort of like area. And then I can take and get blue violet going on the other side. And then I'm going to clear my brush, and then I get to wipe it with like a paper towel, and then I'm going to try to pull some of these boundaries together. And so see what happens when I get a little bit of water to transition that. So this can give you like, what is it, like a sort of gradient effect or transition. And you can, play with that in terms of getting a smooth transition, which is sometimes a little bit harder to do with like a wet on dry technique in watercolor, but you can see a little bit of that transition that we've got there. Another thing I really like to do with watercolor is just sort of like drop in areas of, so I'm actually going to smash that with my shirt to soak up some water. So I'm going to drop in some water. And again, my water's like pretty muddy at this point, but I can take and flood in like a little bit of the yellow into that, and then just let it sort of sit for a while. And I can push it with the brush a bit more, and so you can get really like kind of playful with that in a way. You can also think about, and should not avoid thinking about the negative space. So that's the space around everything else that we've got. So I'm going to take this cleaner water, and so it's also, I think, picking up a bit of my, maybe not on this, sometimes it picks up the pen ink, but if I get my paper nice and wet, I can create a shape for the paint to sort of flow into. Now this is a thinner paper than I had on the, like it's like kind of a cardstock, but it's not really great for watercolor, or as great for watercolor. You see how that like starts to pop out this space. Now I'm going to leave this white just because, and then I'm going to think about, you know, what I could do, maybe like pop a color in there, and oh, maybe I could do, what I was kind of thinking is, so you do have your color scheme where you're, you know, limited to the 3 colors, but because like you're an artist, like you're making stuff, you're not beholden to that color scheme, right? You can always like sort of go against the rules that you set up for yourself. And so I'm gonna, you know, maybe go with like a redder color there, so I could maybe get away with it because it's like a red violet. Maybe I could say it's a red violet, but you know, I don't really care. I'm gonna make it more maybe intense at the bottom. Yeah, that's fine. And so then I can play with some like these red violets as I'm moving around, because I haven't gotten a lot of those in the space. But I'm going to continue, you know, kind of playing around here, but you know, I don't need to like sort of overwork it where I just have to keep adding and adding. You know, at a certain point I can just say, well, that's it. I feel like it's a cohesive sort of play of color and space, and then just sort of call it. And I don't have any sort of like amount of you know, shapes that need to be filled in before I call it a finished painting. It's just like, when does it sort of feel finished? Now one of the final things I just wanted to show you, these are, I think, dry-ish right now. So like maybe over this one, just to show you, once this is dry, I can then take a wash of yellow over top of it, and it's going to get you a very different combination of colors. This is one of the nice things about watercolors, that you mix colors not just by mixing them as the paint's wet, but also in transparent layers. These transparent washes over top of each other build up and create a really rich surface. So you're playing with the white of the paper and then layering these transparent surfaces over the top, and that's going to get you this painting that you know, you never would have anticipated making before. And it's going to investigate some things about like how we see ourselves through color. Thanks for stopping by, and follow us at